Hello everyone! Welcome to today's exciting lesson, and I'm so glad you are here. In this video, we will dive deep into a beautiful and powerful poem called A Poison Tree by William Blake. But I'm not doing this alone. I have got two amazing friends joining me today.
Hello, I am Belva Zuhura.
Hello, I'm Najla Nur Faiza.
And hello, I'm Rosalia. Together, we are here to make poetry fun and easy to understand. Let's get started! Today, we have two core objectives for our lesson. The first, we will explore pragmatics. That's all about reading between the lines. We will uncover hidden meanings, figure out metaphors, and even feel the emotions behind the words. This is where the poem truly comes to life. And the second, we will jump into morphology. It's like cracking a word code. We will look at suffix, roots, and how words are formed to see how they add to the poem's tone and meaning. But before we jump into those, let's take a moment to understand the meaning of a poison tree. A Poison Tree by William Blake is about the dangers of holding on to anger. The speaker says that when they were angry with a friend and talk about it, the anger went away. But when they keep their anger hidden from an enemy, it grows stronger. Blake compares this hidden anger to a tree, which grows when fed by fear and secret feelings. Eventually, the tree produces a shiny apple, symbolizing the harm that hidden anger can cause. The enemy takes the apple and dies under the tree, showing that unexpressed anger can hurt both others and ourselves. The poem's message is clear: it's better to talk about our anger than let it grow into something dangerous. And now that we have explored the meaning of a poison tree, let's step back and look at the era it comes from. Its Romantic era, and how its unique characteristics shape the poem. The Romantic era, from the late 1700s to the mid-1800s, was a time when writers focused on feelings, imagination, and nature instead of following strict rules. It was all about being creative and expressing personal ideas, which we can see in Blake's poems. And now, let's take a closer look at some key characteristics of romantic poetry, starting with emotions and imagination. So, romantic poetry often focuses on emotions like love or anger and the power of imagination. In A Poison Tree, Blake shows anger as something that grows like a tree, becoming stronger and more dangerous over time. This creative way of describing emotions is typical of romantic poetry, showing how intense feelings can be when kept inside. And the second is nature as symbolism. Romantic poets use nature to represent human feelings. In Blake's poem, the tree symbolizes hidden anger. Just like a tree grows with water and sunlight, anger grows stronger when fed by fear, hate, and secret thoughts. Nature and human feelings are often connected in romantic poetry. The next is critique of society and norms. Blake criticized the idea of hiding emotions. In the poem, the speaker keeps anger inside and it becomes poisonous. This shows the dangers of hiding negative feelings to fit into society, a common theme in romantic poetry, which values being honest about emotions even if they are uncomfortable. And the last, individual experience. Romantic poets also focus on personal experiences. Blake shows how one person's hidden anger can deeply affect their life. The poem emphasizes how emotions are unique to each individual, a key feature of romantic poetry. Now that we have explored the meaning of a poison tree and its connection to the Romantic era, so let's dive into some important elements of poetry in this work. We will break down rhyme, rhythm, alliterations, and assonance to see how Blake uses them to make the poem come alive. But let's take a moment to listen as Najla reads A Poison Tree for us.
A Poison Tree by William Blake. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, my wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears. and I sunned it with smiles, and with soft, deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. And into my garden stole, when the night had veiled the pole. In the morning, glad, I see my foe stretched beneath the tree.
Okay, thank you to Najla. And now, let's continue to my explanation. First, let's talk about the basics. So, a poison tree has 4 stanzas and a total of 16 lines. The simple structure helps the poem flow smoothly, making it easier for us to follow the speaker's emotions as they grow stronger throughout the poem. The next is sound, and the first that we talk about is rhyme. In the poison tree, Blake uses end rhyme with an AABB rhyme pattern. This means that in each stanza, the first and second lines rhyme with each other, and the third and fourth lines rhyme with each other. So let's break it down. Now we look in the first stanza. The rhyme is AABB. The words friend and end rhyme because they have the same ending sound. Similarly, foe and grow, it's rhyme because they share the same O sound. This rhyme helps emphasize the difference between how the speaker deals with anger toward a friend versus a foe, and it creates a smooth, flowing rhythm that makes the message easier to understand. And in the second stanza, we see the rhyme pattern change to CCDD. Here, fear and tears rhyme, and smiles and wiles also rhyme. This rhyme shows how the speaker is feeding the anger, like taking care of a tree, and the repeating sounds focus on emotions like fear and dishonesty. Next, let's talk about rhythm. The poem follows a steady rhythm called iambic tetrameter, meaning each line has 4 pairs of syllables, that's 8 syllables in total. The pattern goes unstressed, stress, unstressed, and stress like a heartbeat. So let's look at the few lines to see this. For the example, we look in the third stanza. The stressed syllables are grew, night, apple, bright, foe, shine, new, and mine. These stressed words emphasize the growing anger, just like the tree getting bigger and stronger. This steady rhythm helps build tensions and show how the anger grows over time. And we look in the fourth stanza. The stressed syllables are garden, stole, night, pole, morning, glad, sea, beneath, and tree. These stressed words help create a feeling of danger and finality, emphasizing the consequence of the hidden anger. Next, let's talk about alliteration, which is the repetition of the same consonant sound at the beginning of nearby words. It creates a rhythmic of melody effect and draws attention to important sounds in the poem. Here are some examples from a poison tree. Let's talk about the 7th line. The repetitions of sounds like the S in sun and smiles make the poem sounds more musical and emphasize key emotions. Finally, let's look at the assonance, which is the repetitions of vowel sounds within nearby words. It helps create a musical quality that enhances the mood of the poem. And here are some examples from assonance in the poison tree. Let's look in the 5th line. The repeating vowel sounds, the I in it and in, give the poem a flowing, rhythmic sounds that enhance the emotional atmosphere. And by using these elements, like rhyme, rhythm, alliteration, and assonance, Blake creates a poem that's not only meaningful but also has a musical quality. These techniques help bring the speaker's emotions to life, making a poison tree an unforgettable piece of poetry. Now we move to the linguistic. The first that we talk about is imagery. Imagery is when a poet uses descriptive language to help us see, feel, or experience what's happening in the poem. It helps create vivid pictures in our minds and allows us to connect with the emotions and actions in the poem. In the Poison Tree, Blake uses different types of imagery to show the speaker's emotions and how they change throughout the poem. There are several types of imagery, like visual, organic, and kinesthetic, which help us experience the anger and fear in the poem. Now, Najla will explain these types of imagery in more detail and show us how Blake uses them to bring the poem to life.
Hello, I'm Najla, and now let's talk about visual imagery in the poem. As Osha said, visual imagery helps readers picture what the poem describes, almost like reading a movie in your mind. For example, in lines 4 and 9, the words grew and grow make us imagine a tree getting bigger, just like the speaker's anger grows every day. It's like watching something small turn into something huge and uncontrollable. Then, in line 10, we read, "Till it bore an apple bright." Here, we can imagine a tree growing a shiny, colorful apple. The apple looks tempting, but it symbolizes the speaker's anger turning into something dangerous, or something poisonous. Finally, in line 16, "My foe outstretched beneath the tree" paints a vivid picture of the speaker's enemy lying still under the tree. This shows how the anger represented by the tree and its apple has harmed the foe. Through these images, the poem uses everyday things like trees and apples to show how anger grows and becomes destructive if we do not address it. Now, let's look at organic imagery, which shows the speaker's internal feelings. In lines 1 and 3, the word angry reflects strong emotions like frustration or rage towards someone who hurt the speaker. Later, in line 15, we see the word glad. Here, the speaker feels happy, but it's a dark kind of happiness, a sense of satisfaction from taking revenge and watching their enemy suffer. This type of imagery helps us understand the intense emotion driving the speaker's actions. Next, let's talk about kinesthetic imagery, which describes actions and movements. In line 5, the word watered shows how the speaker takes care of their anger like watering a plant. Instead of letting it go, they keep feeding it by thinking about it repeatedly. And in line 7, sunned reveals how the speaker pretends to smile and act kind, but this fake kindness only makes their anger grow even stronger. Now, let's explore figurative language in this poem. There are 3 figurative language in this poem. The first one is metaphor. Is compare two things without using word like or as. And the second is personification. It gives human qualities to non-human things like emotions. And the third one is symbolism. It uses objects or events to represent deeper meanings. In A Poison Tree, William Blake uses metaphors to express emotions. The first example is in lines 5 and 6. Anger is compared to a growing plant fed by fear and tears. This shows how focusing on anger makes it grow. And in line 7, sunned represents hiding through feelings behind fake smiles, letting the anger grow even more. The next figurative language is personification. In A Poison Tree, William Blake uses personification to make anger feel like a living thing. In line 9, and it grew both day and night. Anger is treated like a plant that grows constantly needing attention. This shows how anger builds up over time. And the next example is in line 10, till it bore an apple bright. Anger is compared to a tree producing a poisonous apple, symbolizing the harmful result of nurtured anger. By giving anger human qualities, Blake shows how unchecked anger can grow stronger and more dangerous. In A Poison Tree, William Blake uses 2 main symbols, the tree and the apple. The tree represents the speaker's growing anger, which becomes stronger over time if unchecked. And the apple symbolizes the result of that anger, a dangerous and poisonous fruit that leads to harm. Next is tone. The tone of a poem is the feeling or attitude the poet shows. The tone of A Poison Tree is negative, showing strong emotions like anger and arrogance. Blake uses this tone to highlight the destructive power of unchecked anger. At the beginning of the poem,
The speaker feels angry. This is clear when the speaker says he was angry with his friend in line 1. The speaker feels upset with someone who has hurt him. As the poem goes on, the speaker's anger grows. In line 5, the speaker says he watered his anger, which means he kept thinking about it and made it worse. By the end of the poem, the tone changes to arrogance. The speaker feels pleased when his enemy is dead and he is happy that his anger has led to this result. In lines 15 until 16, the speaker shows he feels proud of what happened even though it is harmful. The poisoned apple in line 10 is a symbol of how the speaker's anger has turned into something dangerous. The apple represents pride because the speaker is proud of the harm his anger has caused. Now, let's try to implementing the poem A Poison Tree in English learning with Morphology and Pragmatic. So, what is morphology? Morphology is the study of the structure and formation of words. It focuses on how words are built from smaller units called morphemes, the smallest units of meaning or grammatical function in a language. So there are types of morphemes. The first one is bound morphemes. These cannot stand alone and must attach to other, such as using prefix or suffix. And free morphemes can stand alone as words. For example, book, run, and happy are free morphemes since they have meaning on their own. Affixation. Affixation is adding a prefix, beginning, suffix, end, and infix in the middle to a base word to change its meaning or function. Based on the poem, for example, in deceitful, the base word deceit gets the suffix full to form an adjective meaning full of deceit. Inflectional morphemes. Inflectional morphemes is the part of bound morphemes. Inflectional morphemes are endings that show grammar features like tense or number without changing the word's meaning. Based on the poem, the examples are bore is the past tense of bear, showing anger produced the apple, and stole is the past tense of steal, showing the fool entered the garden. The last is tears and fears, use the plural as to suggest multiple instances of fear and crying. Next is derivational morphemes, also part of the bound morphemes. Derivational morphemes create new words by adding prefixes or suffixes, often changing the word's meaning or grammatical category. For example, in deceitful from the poem, the base word deceit takes the suffix full to form an adjective meaning full of deceit. This shows how adding a derivational morpheme changes a noun into an adjective. Next is reduplication. Reduplication is repeating a word or morpheme to emphasize intensity or duration. For example, in my wrath, the repetition highlights the intensity and deeply personal nature of the speaker's anger. Let's move on to compounding. Compounding combines two or more base words to form a new word with a unique meaning. For example, outstretched combines out and stretched to describe the foal lying fully extended. Apple bright pairs apple and bright to symbolize a tempting yet poisonous fruit of the speaker's anger.
Next is archaic and constructive forms. Archaic forms are old ways of spelling or using words that we don't see much in today's language, while constructive forms are just shorter version of words or phrases. For example, the word field, V-E-I-L-D. This is the old way of spelling field, V-E-I-L-E-D, leaving out the E part. Using this older form gives the poem a more classic and old-time feel. Next example is still. This is just a shorter way of saying until. It is a common contraction that helps the poem flow better. Wow! We reached the quiz section. Here, you will need to identify the root word or base word of a given word, determine its suffixes or prefixes, and classify whether the word belongs to inflectional or derivational categories. Sound exciting, right? Okay, let's jump into the question. So, the root word is the seed, which is a noun. When we add the suffix full, it becomes deceitful, which is an adjective. This means full of deceit or having a quality of deceit. The suffix full changes the word from a noun to an adjective, so it's a derivational morpheme because it changes the word class and meaning. So, the root word is stretch, which is a verb. When we add the prefix out and the suffix ed, it becomes outstretched. So, the prefix out implies stretching outwards, while the suffix ed makes the verb past tense, indicating the action has already happened. Since the prefix out changes the meaning, so this is a derivational morpheme because it changes both the meaning and the grammatical form of the original word. The root word is water. The suffix ed is an inflectional morpheme because it only changes the tense of the word without creating a new word or changing its class. Great job, guys! Next is pragmatics. Pragmatics is about understanding the deeper meaning in the poem, the things the poet wants us to feel or think beyond just the words. It helps us explore the emotions, relationships, and message the speaker shared through their words, especially when talking about something like anger. It is like reading between the lines to discover what's really being said. That we're gonna explain is how the speaker handles anger. So, the speaker behaves differently with a friend and a foe, the enemy. With a friend, the speaker talks about their anger openly. We can see this on the sentence, I told my rat. This honesty makes the anger go away. My rat did end. With a foe, the speaker hides their anger and doesn't talk about it. I told it not. This makes the anger grow stronger. My rat did grow. Next is what happened to the foe. So the foe sees the apple and wants it because it looks good. He sneaks into the speaker's garden at night to take it, but in the morning, the speaker finds the foe lying dead under the tree. What does this mean? The foe was tricked by the apple's appearance. This shows that suppressed anger can turn into something deceitful and harmful. Next is the speaker's deception. The speaker hides their true feelings with smiles and soft deceitful wiles, the tricks. This politeness is fake and used to mislead the foe. Hidden meaning is pretending to be nice while secretly feeling angry can be harmful to both people. Wow, we come to the second quiz section. In here, you must identify the hidden meaning of the word or sentence from the poem. You can try to make your own words, and the answer can be fairies.
Okay, that's all for our analysis of a poison tree and how we can use morphology and pragmatics to explore its meaning as a learning tool. I hope this explanation helps you understand the poem better and gives you useful insight for your own studies. Thank you for watching, and we hope this assessment is very helpful for you. See you next time!